Hi, everyone. It's Danielle from Teaching Well. I just want to invite you into this Teacher Summer Self-Care Conference, and I'm so excited to be here and be one of the presenters on day 2 of this amazing conference. So I would love to hear from people where you may be from or what you may be wanting to hear in my little Q&A presentation. And I'll give you a couple moments to add your voices in. And I'll just tell you a little bit about me as you're coming in. So my name is Danielle Nuhfer, and I am the owner, founder of Teaching Well. And what Teaching Well does is what we believe in is really the most important thing. What we believe in is that the greatest predictor of a school's success is the well-being of its teachers. So let me just say that again. The biggest predictor of a school's success is the well-being of its teachers. That's a bold statement. And when I have said that throughout the years, because I've founded Teaching Well in 2016, I know that's a bold statement, but it's a true statement. And finally, people are starting to believe in that. People are starting to believe that teacher well-being is really, really important. Oh, great. Hi, Margaret. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going over, all right. So we have Simona, I believe, as well. Awesome. So again, my name is Danielle. I'm from Teaching Well, and we got North Carolina. All right, we got some South Carolina, North Carolina. Yay. So the biggest predictor of a school's success is the well-being of its teachers. And what do you guys think about that? What do you think of that as a slogan for like my mission and the mission of Teaching Well? Do you find that to be true as teachers in the field? All right, we have some yeses. That's great. And I think, sometimes teachers are even a little uncomfortable with saying that because it feels like selfish, like like the kids are first. And I really want to, just like in the little presentation I put together for you, I'm flipping the script. I want us to try to flip the script on this idea that, the kids are of course important. Of course the kids are important. That's why we show up to school every day. But the biggest predictors, if we can do the job we need to do reaching our students, is if we are okay, and if we are fulfilled, and if we are getting our needs met, both individually, like by ourselves, and through the system. So we need to prioritize ourselves and empower ourselves to prioritize ourselves and flip that script. Like, yes, of course the kids are important. That's why I'm here. But this school is not going to be at its best unless the teachers are really coming together and know how to care for themselves. So, just to give you a little bit of background about me, why I'm here in 2024, I went through 2 bouts of my own teacher burnout. I've been a teacher for over 20 years. I started teaching in 2001. So many of you may have been in school then. I went through my own 2 bouts of teacher burnout, one when I was about 5 years into the profession, and then another 10 years after that. the burnout was for completely different reasons. The first one was my personal and professional life like really collided. I was having a lot of personal turmoil in my 20s, as you could hear, or you could say. And my principal actually brought me into his office and said, Danielle, the person we hired is not the person who sits here. Like, what's going on with you? And I did a lot of soul searching that summer, realized how much my life was like really a mess and it was impacting my ability to be a teacher. Anybody else ever have a sort of situation like this where you like have a lot of stuff personally going on and it like impacts your ability to teach? I think sometimes teachers or people who aren't teachers don't realize how challenging being a human and being a teacher is. Like, we are on stage all the time. And when we, again, 5 years into my profession, so I see a lot of people saying, yeah, most definitely. So yeah, like it was unavoidable that it started to like bubble up into the way that I was showing up in my classroom. And to be perfectly honest, that took me on a journey of getting sober. I found myself to be, I was using a lot of substances to get me through this time in my life. And I have been sober for 18 years after that incident with the principal. So 18 years ago, I did that soul searching, and my classroom changed after my personal struggle changed. I see a lot of people putting in that there have been health challenges and things like that. And yeah, like, how do we teach through that? Like, it is so challenging. And sometimes when we're not listening to ourselves, like somebody just said in the chat, like they started to learn how to slow down. When we're not listening to our bodies, we push through and think we're doing a really good job, when really, if we would pull back and slow down, we might do a much better job. And that's what I try to do at Teaching Well is all about. So I prioritize really teaching the teachers I work with about mindfulness. And that's what really saved me way back 18 years ago was finding mindfulness practices. And then 10 years after that, if I continue down that trajectory, it was mindfulness again that saved me, because I really got clear on what was going on in my life. So does anybody, and I'll just throw this out there in the chat, when I say mindfulness, what are you guys thinking about? Because this is such a buzzword, and people think it's sometimes different than what perhaps it really might be. So I will just share my definition of mindfulness. So my definition of mindfulness, what I try to teach from, is that mindfulness is simply paying attention to the present moment without judgment. So paying attention to the present moment without judgment. And I see some people saying, for me, meditation every morning before school. Thank you, Simona. And Maggie said she associates mindfulness to good mental health and being fully present. Yes. It's taking those moments, absolutely, when we are on our own. And I'm actually going to have you guys do a mindfulness practice in just a moment, or I'll invite you to do one in just a moment. But it's also day to day in our classroom. It's being aware of how we're feeling in that moment without judgment. So what that means is when we are in a classroom with our students, we are paying attention to how we're really feeling when we're with them. And like this goes right back to what we talked about with like the burnout, my 5-year burnout, and then my 10 years later. And what you guys are talking about was slowing down. It's paying attention to sometimes I need to not push through and I need to take a breath. And it's these kids need a breath, right? It's these kids, it's paying attention to the way we embody our presence in our classroom, right? So mindfulness is showing up moment by moment and paying attention to what's going on. And here's the thing, I can be mindful and be angry. And I can be mindful of, I guess I should say, I can be mindful of my anger. And I can be mindful that I am not happy right now. And I can be mindful that these kids are driving me bananas. That doesn't mean, so mindfulness isn't always about feeling good. It's about being aware of how I'm feeling. Does that make sense? And then proceeding from a place of what do I do with that information now? Okay. So I see Erica wrote, mindfulness is taking the time to relax, which might be going on walks. So what I'm hearing is that you're really mindful of how you're feeling and how the walks make you feel after, and that you want to prioritize those things. So that's great. So it's in the middle of our day when we're walking to our mailbox and our shoulders are hunched and we're walking really fast and that just doesn't feel good, that we just relax down and we walk at the same pace and we pay attention to how we're feeling, how we're holding our body. The way you get good at being mindful in the moment, like in your classroom, where I talked about in the TLC or the Flip the Script workshop, the way you get good at that is you create moments where you can practice mindfulness when the kids aren't in the classroom and when you're not at a deadline and when you're not completely stressed out. So I want to invite you, if you're willing, to participate in this small little mindfulness exercise. And we can talk about after I go through it. It's just a couple minutes. And you can participate at whatever level you feel comfortable. I'm just going to ask you to notice different things, because remember, mindfulness is simply being aware of what's happening in the moment. So again, I invite you to do this however large or small you want to invest in it, but just see how it works. And after it's just a couple minutes, and then we'll just check back in and see how that felt and what your response to it. Okay. So I'd like you to get into a comfortable seated position if that's available to you, and you can allow your eyes to close or just look down and forward. I want you to notice one in-breath and one out-breath. And notice your hands touching. Notice where your body touches the chair. Notice one in-breath and one out-breath. And notice how your mind feels right now. Remember something that happened yesterday. Now bring your mind back to right now. Notice one in breath and one out breath. Imagine something that might happen tomorrow. And bring your mind back to right now. Notice one in breath and one out breath. Bring your attention to your left foot. Your right shoulder. Your entire left arm. Notice behind your eyes. Notice one in breath and one out breath. Now notice how your mind feels right now. Now bring your attention back to the sound in the room. And when you're ready, you can allow your eyes to open or lift your head up. So I hope you haven't fallen asleep. That happens kind of often with people. And I always say, if you fell asleep, then you must have needed it. So that's good. No problem. But I'd love to just hear any response you have, or, feedback you have, or experience you had on this little mindfulness practice. Sometimes people have a tendency to focus on the breathing or the sound. Oh, we got some yawning. Now I'm going to yawn. That's the contagion of the yawn. Somebody said that Maggie said she loved the exercise. It made her feel calm, cool, and collected. And again, this was like a couple of moments, right? So these are the type of practices that I work with when I work with teachers, when I work with them individually and in a group coaching capacity, and when I work with them at school districts. This is what I do. We work on doing these mindfulness practices, and we do them in a very controlled setting. And then we talk about, well, how could we take some of this into our classrooms tomorrow? Because as a teacher, and I understand as you as educators, like, you're like, this feels good and I feel calm, but what is it? How is this helping me in my actual job? So does anybody have any thoughts? That Erica said she's out on a boat with her dad while he's fishing. So doing that while listening to the water was very relaxing. And I think everybody feels calm and relaxed. But then how do we transition and transfer this into something that actually is applicable to our classrooms or to your life? Because in the summer, you might not be in a classroom. But does anybody have any thoughts or ideas about, like, okay, I'm calm now, but what does that mean? How do I bring this practice to where I really need it? Anybody have any thoughts about that? Because that's really the meat of what teaching well does. And I can give you the answer, or I can give you some suggestions, but I'm just seeing if there's anybody that wants to chime in and say, I can see how this can translate. And I will say, when you're watching, or if you've already watched the workshop that I recorded for you guys, I try to make that really clear how the mindfulness practices, or paying attention and being aware, can really transform your classroom. I give you the TLC method. So please, if you haven't already, check that out. Anybody? All right. So somebody said Erica said taking time to do some breathing exercises during a break. She said that she thinks that could be helpful in the middle of the day. Good. And I would say, thinking about, or a suggestion or an invitation I would have is, so you do these mindfulness practices. They are going to better prepare you to focus on the present moment when you're in that classroom. So the way that I just took you through that practice was like, I had you thinking, and then I had you feeling your body, and then I had you over to your breath, and I had you kind of doing this little exercise. So the more that you can practice doing that when there isn't distraction, the better you are going to be equipped to, and I know as teachers, we can bounce from thing to thing to thing, but when you're bouncing from thing to thing to thing, can you really be focused on that thing? So when you are talking to the student, you are all in. And when you are preparing the lesson, you are all in over here. So really, this mindfulness practice, it teaches you to bring that state of being into the everyday things that you're doing. And again, as you get more specific with the type of mindfulness practices that you do, we can be very much more practical in how that you bring these to your classroom. So that is something that I help teachers with very, very often. I'd love to open it up. I have just a couple more moments. Is there anybody that has a question for me that I haven't already answered? Anything that you care to ask based on what I said, or based on the workshop that you may have already seen, or anything that is, that has come up over the course of our time together. Wait a couple of moments for that. And I will say, as people are posting things, or if there's some questions being typed out, please, if there is anything that you need or have questions about over the course of today, and as we go on with this conference, I will put something in the Facebook group. I'll put a post in so you can ask me any questions that might arise. So in the next, however long that is open, I'll be happy to do that. And I also would be happy to connect with you, Danielle at teachingwell.life. That is an easy way to email me directly. And I would be happy to also, if you want to join my newsletter, that's perhaps the best and greatest way that I communicate, really meaningful stuff, is through my newsletter. I have a great newsletter full of very dedicated readers that I connect with fairly often. Like once a week, I will make sure that you get some really good content that is meaningful and that, hopefully can be embedded and directly, applied to the classroom. So just go to my website, teachingwell.life, and you can find how to get onto the Well Wish newsletter. So teachingwell.life and Danielle at teachingwell will get you, Danielle at teachingwell.life. All right, let's see. Simona. So we had some thank yous. Wonderful. I have no break at school for 5 hours and I start feeling overwhelmed. How can I decompress? Simona, I would say, are there ways that you can slip into your day, things at your desk, things in your room, and I call them pockets of mindful moments. So those pockets of mindful moments where you can have cold water at your desk. You know, sometimes we don't even drink water. Can you have a Post-it that says breathe? Can you have like a stone or a rock or some good scent at your desk that you can, like, again, throughout the day, have reminders to just like do those little pick-me-ups throughout. So those are some things that maybe you can do. And I like to do a transition from school to home, that after your 5-hour day or after that time where you have like a little bit of time that you can transition from work to home, and it's like your time. So yes, during those 5 hours, you might feel overwhelmed, but you know you have this planned routine that is going to help you from school to work, or I'm sorry, school to home. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Brittany. This has been amazing. You are putting on a tremendous conference. Thank you for letting me be a part of it, and for all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.